welcome to the Catholic Forge, a conversational podcast where we gather to explore our Catholic faith and discuss how it forms our lives. All are welcome to join in this conversation and journey. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Eric in Missouri.
And this is John in Illinois.
And John, we are joined by Johnna, who is live in Lexington, Kentucky. Johnna, welcome to the Catholic Forge.
Thank you very much for having me.
One question to start off, and it's not the question for guests, but it's a question. Johnna, do you enjoy coffee?
I love coffee.
So Johnna is a perfectly acceptable human being, right?
I hate coffee.
Oh, goodness.
That's exactly the... Well,
I like the smell of coffee.
Everyone does. That's true. My mom doesn't care for it. Well, there you go.
The smell?
Anyway, the smell, even the smell.
Does she like the taste, though?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, good for her.
So she would not be interested in the Catholic Forge's sponsor, Common Sense Coffee. And, God darn it, by now you know, Common Sense Coffee is a small batch artisan coffee roastery based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It used to be here in Missouri, but they moved. No big deal. What does this mean, a small batch? That's what Bishop Behrman would say. What does that mean? What do I mean by that? Small batch coffee means that your order is crafted to your personal and particular tastes. And Roast Master Zach, that's my dude, will work with you to get the roast you want on the beans you love or will come to love. And as a Catholic Forge listener, you can save $1 off of every order by simply typing in the code CFORGE in the comments and questions section of the order form. And so thanks to Common Sense Coffee for the sponsorship of the podcast. We appreciate that. And really, if you want to try something that's different, okay, a step above or away from the Folgers or the Maxwell House, okay, try Common Sense Coffee. Common Sense Coffee, the coffee you'll run to enjoy. Now, let's get on with the business. John, you have a very special question for John.
I do have a very important question. So everyone that comes on the podcast, we have to ask them this unique question. And it is, if you had a superpower, what superpower would it be and why?
I'm really glad I prepared for this question by listening to you guys.
Oh, we've got to change our question.
But also, this is also always a really easy answer for me. I would love to have teleportation.
But then you would lose the running.
But actually, I'm super lazy when I'm not running.
Okay.
So my husband makes fun of me for that I can go run 12 miles and then he wants me to go like downstairs to get something. And I'm like, why?
How cool would that be, though? At any moment, you would run and then vanish. And so that would be your signature move, running into vanishing into and then reappearing, running. It would be so much cooler than just teleportation from sitting, as Eric would do.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That is a good move. That's very Harry Potter. Apparition, yes. John, are you still stuck on flight?
Stuck? One day you'll see the value of flying.
Oh my gosh. Butterfly in the sky. That's on that. Well, that's a great answer. Another unique answer as well. I don't think anyone said teleportation yet.
No, whenever people ask these sort of questions, that's never one that comes up, and I never understand why.
What was it? What was the last one, John? What did they say? Oh, anyway, it was very unique. Now, Johnna is here.
The people who speak languages. And singing them.
Jaime Cortez, of course.
Yes.
Which was a great episode.
That's a good one, too, though.
But, yeah, that's really good. But Johnna is here because we had Pastor Dave Ellingson on. And in the episode where he visited with us, he talked about his adventures, these long-form kayaking trips, right? Where he was kayaking the length of the Mississippi River and the fjords in Norway and all this kind of stuff. And I just got to thinking how wonderful that kind of conversation was, hearing these stories. And I thought, there have got to be athletes in the world, surely, that are Catholic and would want to share their story. So, John, hand to heaven, I went to the Google and punched in Catholic long distance athletes. and of course you get the slurm of whatever it is, but I came upon the website Catholic Women Run. Now, normally, I would have no cause to click on such a webpage, but I thought, hey, let me check this out, see what's going on. At least someone's running. It's my wife and them, apparently. That's it. That's the only people that are running. That's a definite Seinfeld joke. I'm stealing. I'm sorry, Jerry. I'll send the check. I'm sorry I stole it. But indeed, Johnna is the co-founder of this wonderful online community that is not only about fitness, but faith and how the two are really integrated. And I don't want to say any more than that because, Johnna, I want to give you just as much time as you want. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about the drive for running. And then, if you can take us into sort of how Catholic Women Run ever got started and then
also the impact going. Just looking at the testimonials that you have on your website, it's pretty impressive. So what effect has it had on other people and other women in their faith life?
So how about that?
Yeah, great. So I guess I would start with a really important piece of this is that I'm a Catholic convert. So I I came into the Catholic Church, I think 2 years this Easter. So it'll be 3 years next year, which is really exciting.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Thank you. And before that, I was an Episcopalian.
And nobody's perfect.
Pretty similar, yeah. But actually, before that, I was Jewish. So I grew up Jewish.
Wow, how wonderful.
I have a very
the blood of the Lamb
range.
is on it, John.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. So, but the Episcopal Church, I was really into that for from college until when I came to the Catholic Church, and I never understood. I actually kind of had a bad view of Catholics because
we all do.
Well, for one thing, I grew up in the South, the deep South, Alabama, and there aren't a lot of Catholics. And I have since learned that there's actually the least amount of Catholics in Alabama, I think, in a square footage percentage or something than anywhere else. Huh. So the Catholics I knew, I didn't really know that much. And of course, you're surrounded by Baptists, so they also didn't really know a lot about Catholic.
And they're usually not too positive towards us.
Incorrect things about Catholics.
Right.
So of course that was my view of Catholicism. But then when I moved to Lexington, Kentucky, I was a faith-based community organizer. So I had to work with a lot of different faith communities. So Episcopal, Catholic, Baptist, United Methodist, all those things. Right. And I really started learning more about the Catholic Church because I had to have one-on-one conversations with them and started learning more about the doctrines and that there's a lot more to the teachings than just what you would hear in a surface level.
Sure.
And I also think that, and this is where running came in, I had become a runner just a few years before and learned a lot about discipline, self-discipline, that love necessarily for yourself isn't doing whatever you want, whenever you want it. Because when you're running, you can't treat yourself really poorly or drink really heavily the night before because you won't be able to run the next day.
Right.
And so I think it kind of clicked for me when I was learning more about the Catholic Church after I was running that, there is a reason for everything. And as I learned more about the Catholic Church, there seemed to be intention and a lot of thought behind all of the teachings.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So you're in Lexington, and this position leads you, and then so 2 years later, it sounds like you entered the church, right? About
and
somewhere
so
in
that's
there.
Another piece. My co-founder was my matron of honor. She's my best friend. I met her in college. She's Catholic.
Okay.
But I never really asked her much about it. I just kind of had that she does weird stuff, and I never asked her about it.
Weird. What? Weird.
She does things differently or whatever. But then it was having conversations with these people in my job that I actually started opening up to her and asking hey, I want to know more about your perspective. And also I just recently got married and the person I was dating at the time was Catholic.
Congratulations again.
Thank you again. So there was just, I think this I almost like to think of it as I was ripe for, or God had made me ready to hear what he had to say at that point. And so they would kind of throw things at me.
And then that brings us to, once you're Catholic, then obviously you can begin Catholic Women Run. And so what was the impetus? Why ever even put yourself out there? And what is your intention?
Yeah, not just make a running site, but specifically Catholic Run.
Yeah.
So part of that was my best friend, Charlotte, the co-founder, who I remember before I came into the Catholic Church, I knew I wanted to start like a blog or something. I was like, I want to do something. I want to write. I want to have a blog. What should I write about? What do you think I would be good at writing about? And she said, you should write about how your faith and your fitness combine, because I know it does combine for you. And if it connected, then I might actually do it more, because she is not very fit, or she doesn't exercise as much as I do. So she said that she would want something like that. And I kind of just brushed it off at first. I was like, oh, no one will care about that. And then I just couldn't get it out of my head and said, okay, do you want to do this with me? She was like, yeah. And specifically running, like I said, since running for me was this like self-discipline and sacrifice and all of these things, I felt like I'm very into like the new evangelization, that I feel like Catholicism, there are new ways of presenting Catholicism to our current culture that needs, specifically for me, health in general. Yeah. I've not just running, but health has always been very important to me. And I feel like right now we're at this point where everyone's wanting like the wellness culture. You know, health and wellness is this big thing now.
Yeah, it's almost become its own religion in itself. And so it's so absolutely wonderful to see you saying, no, this actually has a place within a greater faith, instead of it just being its own little dogma of itself, which it is. The whole fitness and organic and all that kind of stuff is a whole doctrine. And to see how that fits into a bigger picture is really cool. That's one of the things I got from your website too.
Yeah, well, and I feel like this health and wellness culture, we're still really sick. Like there's still an obesity problem. There's still like depression. There's still anxiety. There's still all of these problems, even though we're obsessed with health and wellness. And I think it's because it's become its own idol and it doesn't have Jesus behind it.
Come on. let me drop that organ in. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Absolutely, is that's what I'm seeing now. Just to be clear, in case anyone who's listening has never like seen me, like my body, in the words of Chris Farley, John from Tommy Boy, I have what doctors call a little bit of a weight problem. Okay, so I'm not speaking on experience, but what I'm observing is that there is this idolatry of the body.
Yes.
And you know, having had friends who have gone in and out of these phases and watched them go through these, I mean, just unbelievable, meticulous, detailed workouts to get just this one thing looking a certain way or whatever it is, and thinking, gosh, is that really it? And then then if you throw 2 hamburgers into the mix, let me say that again. You throw 2 hamburgers into the mix and it wrecks the whole thing, and then you're so depleted. Or, of course, the idol of the scale. I know, having been a big man who's tried to lose weight, those numbers do a lot of damage and not always so much good. And so there is a complex. I'm just speaking from that other side of the spectrum as a person who.
Well, and that's a part of my story too. Before I was actually even Episcopalian, before I would claim myself as Christian, sure, I was obsessed with having abs or looking a certain way because I felt like that would make guys more attracted to me. I mean, I was sexualizing myself almost, because that's what you soak up in this culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there are 2 elements though to this. It's not just there is a vanity side of that, but there's also the discipline side of it, and that's what I find fascinating about your story is that you've just told us now that there was that vanity element, but that the discipline, the structure was something that you craved that too, and so fitness provides both of those things. It can feed vanity, but it also can be a formation, kind of a sacramental, not a sacrament, but a sacramental, a way in which the material leads to the spiritual. So by having discipline in my material life and in monitoring my body and what I eat, that's a good disposition for my spiritual habit. If I can say no to the extra pound of chocolate or the extra beer when I don't need it, that gives me the ability to say no to moral temptation also.
Most definitely. Yeah. And I think that was another thing that kind of drove me to start Catholic Women Run is I found out about the theology of the body, which I immediately became obsessed with. Like, I don't understand why this isn't something I feel like as a convert, from my perspective, the theology of the body is something that's not talked about enough.
You're absolutely right. It's so misunderstood and so forgotten. It is shocking that we don't talk about it more, because it's the whole picture. It's what makes all of our faith make sense. Instead of the Simpsons quote, that I always like is, it's like Simon Says and nobody ever wins Catholics. So standing up, sitting down, kneeling. We're worshiping with our whole body, our whole person, our body and our soul. And so, yeah, what a glorious thing it is. Sorry to interrupt. Go.
But even if theology of the body is talked about, I feel like it's only talked about from a sexual perspective, which, well, I mean, that's good. I needed that to hear that because that's part of my background as well. But we do more with our bodies than have sex. So it needs to be discussed in more than that way.
Yeah.
And so part of your ministry, your outreach, not only is Catholic Women Run, but then you braved the storm again and stepped out and offered yourself and your experience and your story. And if anyone listening wants to learn more, head over to JohnnaWilford.com, JohnnaWilford.com, and you can look through a lot about Johnna, but specifically we can look at these three kind of talks that she gives, and in the context of events or podcasts like this. And John and I certainly were very interested in those top two ideas of how running taught you the true meaning of freedom, and what does the church have to say about health and wellness, which we've already kind of begun to
unpack here.
Yeah, to unpack a little bit. And so, obviously, we don't have you at an event here per se, but could we hear a bit from these talks, these addresses? What freedom did you find in running, and not just absolute constant misery, which would seem to me to be absolutely the case.
If Eric moves faster than a snail's pace, he's in agony.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have so many life alert buttons on my body. If I fall down or if I strain myself, then the ambulance. I'm teasing. Shout out to Life Alert though, just for fun. So take us through these talks here, Johnna. And what kind of response have you gotten to this material? Maybe even after describing them, how are people responding to you and to this message, especially in the context of faith? Go ahead.
So when it comes to what running taught me about true freedom, it's really this, it's the opposite of what people would think. So freedom isn't actually doing whatever you want whenever you want. Freedom is following the guidelines of what will make you happy and really give you joy. And so with running, you have to take care of yourself. You have to eat well. You have to do cross training to make sure that you don't get injured. You have to do when it comes to long runs, you have to get out there and do the long runs. If you don't do it, then you're not going to be able to finish that race. And for me, I feel like it's actually running and sainthood is really similar. I was reading when I was in RCIA, I was reading Thomas Merton's 7-Story Mountain. Yeah. And he had a piece that I will never forget, talking about how the only thing that was holding him back from being a saint was himself.
Yeah.
And that he just wasn't doing it. And for me, that's so similar. I feel like people don't admit that, like, whenever I say, oh, I have a running ministry, or, oh, I run, people are like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not a runner. And definitely people do that with sainthood. Like, oh, I see this saint over there. I cannot be a saint.
Wise.
Like, and as someone who has done a half marathon and 2 marathons now, I mean, I've done more than one half, but the 2 marathons is the most amazing to me because those were the worst. But I do believe that if you train for it, anyone can do it. And so it really is about, you just have to figure out what those guidelines are and follow them and then keep at it. And then you get to the end of the finish line.
Well put. It's a beautiful analogy. The only problem is a marathon does also seem unattainable.
But it's not. I know it seems that way. But I guess I was always, when I ran my first marathon, everyone was so amazed and they kept congratulating. So I can't believe you did that. I actually felt really uncomfortable because I was like, it really is, if you just take the time, you know what you need to do, you have good coaches, you have community around you, then you can do it.
You said that the half marathons were worse or harder. Why was that? Oh, sorry.
It was the 2 marathons that were worse.
Tori has run 1 full, and I mean, you know, I don't have her here to answer, but I think that it would be the 4th hardest thing she's done. The first 3 being, well, married to me. I mean, the first 3 being burying the children, you know, to term. I mean, and watching her. I mean, I don't know if you were engaged at the time or whatever was happening, but if your husband, you know, has viewed you in that, like you said, if he asked, you know, you go do a 12-mile run and you come home, and I saw her after those. Oh, I don't know how long her longest runs were, but 18, 19 miles. You know, and she comes home, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like a ghost walked in the door. You know, so so to witness it firsthand. But then, I mean, it's just such a, you know, you feel your heart swell when she texts you out, you know, at like 11 in the morning when she's been running since 6 or 7, you know, whatever it is, and I did it, I'm on the way back, you know, and that kind of thing. And so both sides, it's just a fascinating discipline, and I have gotten sucked into the world of these, again, along the same lines of like the long distance athletes. These gall darn documentaries on the Netflix, man, on the flicks. That's a copyright to me. People are gonna start calling it the flicks. And these people who are running, you know, the whole Appalachian Trail, like without sleeping, or the 4 women who rode from California to Australia, John, or Hawaii, whatever it is. Unbelievable. So looking at all these different levels of athleticism and discipline, very inspiring, you know, and it does, you're right, I think you said it brilliantly, is up front, it's just the message of the gospel, you know, here, carry this cross. You're like, I don't know about that. And then, oh, by the way, you know, it will lead you to eternal life. That sounds pretty good, you know. Yeah. So the payoff is considerable, but so is the weight of it. So you've John. Please,
I was gonna say, you know, what kind of community did you have supporting you? You said you're the co-founder with you. Does she run marathons too now, or
never even run a 5K?
Oh, okay.
Which is, so I for me, I think because of that feeling of almost not guilt, but when people are amazed, I'm like, you can do it too. Like, I wanted to create Catholic Women Run to tell and show people that they can also do it. And of course, connecting it with the faith of, you can also be a saint. So you have to work towards it, but you can do it.
What would be so the wonderful thing, of course, about our faith in being a saint is we have the sacraments and we have grace. So, you know, with a marathon, that's really kind of up to you and your own determination, but we're not Pelagian. So we have this grace that is there. Is there some analogous part in your journey that would be like that grace, somebody or the community or something that kept you moving beyond just your own ability to pull yourself up and do it on your own?
Well, I think that kind of is a great, God was the grace that actually kept me from not turning back to my ways of being an idol or caring more about my body. And any time that I was actually successful in my training was when I was doing it for more than myself. Wow. So I ran my first marathon for Team in Training, which is a organization that raises money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And then my second marathon was awful, and I kind of just did it to do it. And so and now with my running, because I have this community, I know that it's for this community and it's encouraging these women. And I think that grace is, I guess it is the community. You know, you're doing it for another community.
How wonderful.
And so can you describe to us more about what Catholic Women Run provides to those who subscribe or contribute or sign up, you know, for these emails and stuff? Like what kind of content are you putting out for these people who are communicating with you, who are logged in, etc.?
Yeah, so every week we send out prayers associated with every day except Sunday, because Sunday is the day of rest. So we also try to connect it to the liturgical calendar. So if there's a feast of a saint, I try to put that on the weekly prayer so they can think about that while they're running. I also have what sort of exercise to do each week or each day. So my training schedule, I actually only run 3 days a week, and I have another cardio day, and then I have 2 strength days. So I do something similar to that and tell them.
I like how she says only. I'm
like counting. I'm like 6 days.
I'm only a superhero 6 days a week.
Well, I only run 3 days, and I feel like some people are like, "Oh, you should run every day," but I definitely don't do that. So
I'm over here on the website, John and Johnna, and it says Monday, stretch. Spend at least 30 minutes stretching your muscles. Now hold on, let's just slow it down. 30 minutes stretching.
How long is a rosary? Like 20 minutes.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, John, you know,
Eric is scared of the rosary.
The Divine Mercy Chaplet is superior in every way.
It's simply because it's shorter. He can say it in 3 minutes.
You could take that to the bank, Jack. Now,
fine, just do stretching while you're doing the Divine Mercy Chaplet then.
Like 5 or 6 times then.
Yeah, I stretch my soul. I got the soul core going every day, John. Now, so you get the daily prayers, and on the Facebook, which the book doesn't work very well, like the flicks, so just call it Facebook. You have a page, and I sent along to Tori an Advent. Did you call it a challenge, Johnna, or what was it?
So we have a free challenge, and this year we have our first paid challenge because I actually spent a long time working specifically on a topic. So it's called 21 Days to Healthier and Holier, or Holier and Healthier, either one. And the first week is about kind of talking about what is health from a Catholic perspective. The second week is what is a healthy body from a Catholic perspective. And then the last week is what is a healthy female body.
What is your response to the site bed and to this community?
What do you mean?
I mean, so what kind of feedback do you get from women out there in the world responding to the site, and how are they finding it of value to them? Do they communicate that with you? I saw a few testimonials there. Are you able to share any of that kind of?
Yeah. So a lot of women have just expressed their appreciation. They already were runners, and so they really appreciate that they now have a group of Catholic women to do it with. And then there are also women who want to run and like that they connect it with their faith. And then there was someone the other day who, this is probably why it was on my mind and why I mentioned it, that she feels like she was actually reading a book by a runner who said that she skipped mass to go run instead. And she said that she feels like our culture right now is the religion. Like, I'm running instead, or I'm doing this healthy thing instead, and that's what's good for me. And so she really appreciates that Catholic Women Run actually connects Jesus to it and the faith to it.
Yeah. I think, you talked about earlier the new evangelization. That's what's so brilliant about what you've done here, is that religion feels often so disconnected or hard for people to approach. It isn't my first thought, well, what do I need in my life? I need religion. But running is a little more accessible. And so you're using this on-ramp to help people grow in a holistic way where we're meeting both the spiritual and the physical person. And so it's such a beautiful thing that you're doing. And it's tremendously exciting.
Thank you. And that's kind of, I mean, since running did that for me and was one of the things that brought me into the church, it's something I want to try to do with this as well. But it's hard for me because I also don't want to push it too hard, because then that will turn people off. So figuring out that balance is really hard.
John, I would like to say tonight you're being a very good encourager for Johnna. So I affirm that. 2, on the second talk, what does the church have to say about health and wellness? Now, could you give us just some of the highlights, some of the greatest hits about what the catechism, dogma, and you even dare to say in the little subtitle, I break down a few parts of the Bible that reflect that the church cares just as much about life and physical health as it does about spiritual health. Could you give us just some hits from that, some things that really stand out or that you would want people to hear for their own life to take into their hearts?
Yeah. So the challenge for Advent, I talk about a few of the healing moments in the Bible, because there are a lot of healings in the Bible. Sure. And I recently have been like, why the heck are there so many healings? Why did Jesus have to heal so many people? And it's because it was such a sick world. And I feel like we're in that same period right now, and so we need to kind of have our own healing with the church, and the church needs to be that healing for the world. So that's what I was thinking with the Bible, is all the healing in the Bible and what those reflect. And the catechism, actually, if you Google catechism and health, there's like an entire section on health.
Okay. Yeah.
And it says that it's kind of what we were talking about before, that maintaining health. So health is a gift, but you should also maintain it because it's a gift. But you should also not let it go towards the idolatry of the body or the cult of the body, as the catechism states.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's also something that I think people think about health in an individual way, but the catechism talks about it's individual, and then in a family way, like you have to encourage healthy habits in your family. And then the parish, you have to think about who in your parish needs healing, who needs help. And then once you go beyond the parish level, it's, your community, it's the world, it's all of those things.
Forgive an easy question, but as John and I both work for parishes, I think a worthy question. In the Lexington area, especially where I know there are many running communities and so on, at the parish level, do you have anything in your parish? Johnna leads the Catholic Women running group. They do what they say they do. I mean, do you see that at all? Because I'm just realizing that I have never seen this in any parish I have been in, and I've been in a few. So what do you think?
So I tried to do that last year, the first time we did the challenge last year. The problem is Advent and Lent are both in wintertime.
Winter, yeah.
And so
there
it was
gyms,
really hard.
Right? The gyms are indoors.
There are gyms. So
but that's so
actually,
dreadful. I know. Yes.
I like treadmills. Other people don't. But I am a RRCA certified running coach now. I decided that was something I needed to invest in if I was going to do this ministry.
Righteously reigniting Catholic apologetics. Is that what that is?
Ooh, I'm going to start saying that's the way. Yeah, I like that.
I taught Bishop Brand everything he knows. Thank you very much. And then it's like,
but there are running coaches who do some classes on the treadmill. So I'm still trying to brainstorm that. And if I can figure that out, then it's trying to figure out, though, like, I kind of wish gyms had like a gym. Not gyms. I wish parishes had gyms almost, but that's something for another time, I suppose.
I wonder if there isn't a meditation, so the rosary, we're with our words, when we're speaking the words, we're kind of pushing out the noise in our mind. Like, I wonder if you couldn't replace some of the words with the running, and then have a meditation for running, as you said that you do on your site. But then even work out a prayer that does your breathing. Like there's in the Eastern tradition, there's the Jesus prayer that works in your breathing. But I wonder if there wouldn't be some kind of prayer you could say where that would be the exhale and then the inhale while you work on a meditation. You could have a whole running meditation that you do or something.
Yeah, definitely. So there are already some organizations out there that like do fitness and they're Catholic. So SoulCore is one, Pietra Fitness, and I know that they do have actual classes in parishes sometimes, but I'm still trying to figure out the running classes or strength-based classes because it's a little different than like SoulCore and Pietra.
We did a Zumba class at our church. But it actually awesome. was very neat to see because it was very similar to kind of this idea. You had a group of people that were brought together by their faith, but then were working on their physical health and being better, being stronger and healthier and stuff like that. So it actually, while it might evoke some wild images, it taking place in the lobby of the church, and that's where it took place. But it
in
was
the gathering space, John.
It was in the old narthex of Father Sherry's center. But it's a similar thing. This idea that we can use our bodies to be healthy, to celebrate God, but just to wild kind of a flamenco music or some kind of Spanish dancing music. So,
all right. Well, this has really been outstanding, and genuinely, this is what, John, like our 95th whatever episode, and if I had reached out to Johnna, I don't think we ever would have had a fitness centric conversation like this, because normally when we talk about food, it's normally like what is the perfect ratio of bacon to mayonnaise now, and we're still really slaving away at that, but Johnna, this has been awesome. Thank you for your insight. And we're going to talk a little bit more off the air about Humana Vitae, and then bring that interview back when we cover that document in a future episode. But for now, please tell the people where they can find all of your things, the websites, everything. Give it to them.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me on here. I really appreciate you reaching out to me at all. So they can find us, you said, on our website, CatholicWomenRun.com. We have a Catholic Women Run Facebook page, but also a Facebook group, which is closed, so you can be invited to that. And we're on Instagram at Catholic Women Run.
What would it take to get Charlotte to run a 5K?
She's working on it. So she has been using our beginner 5K plan, but she also has a small child, so it's a little bit harder for her.
Sure, absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, I sent everything along to Tori, who, like I said, just finished a half marathon, and already she's, as you understand, I'm sure, she's already looking at the next thing. Will it be a half? Will it be a full? And so I said, hey, as you kind of get ready for this next round of training, how about this? Because she already has kind of her own regiment. But I said, can you bring this in somehow? Can this factor in so that the training is more mindful?
And just to be part of a community, that's such a value that that gives that accountability too. I've got sisters out there that are looking to me. That's a really neat idea.
Yeah, I see the fatigue, at least in my wife, and I see that she has no interest in running, 2 or 12 miles. And so I wonder, it's not that faith already isn't a component for her, but if she could go to that if she could go to that source of strength, I'm very interested to see how that would perhaps transform her approach to her race preparation and running. So thank you, Johnna, for this resource. I think you definitely are embodying the very best spirit of the new evangelization. And I think you've spoken well, and that you're striking the iron while it's hot on something that is, across almost all of culture, fitness, health, exercise, and integrating that, really marrying it to theology. So good for you, and please just keep going.
Thank
please.
You.
Outstanding.
Let me know how it goes with Tori too.
We will stay in touch. Now, this has been the Catholic Forge. Thanks to Johnna and all the Catholic running women. And we'd like to close, as always, with a prayer and a blessing. May God the Father, God the Son,
and God the Holy Spirit bless you, guard you, and lead you to eternal life. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for listening to the Catholic Forge. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and will leave us a positive rating and review wherever you listen. Now, I know I teased this before, but we are on the Spotify now. They broke open a beta, so podcasts can finally get in. So you can go and get that Catholic Forge on the Spotify now? Come on. How about 5 stars for Johnna and for Catholic Women Run? We'd appreciate that. You can help out the show in a big way by sharing it with your friends and family, with your running friends, and with those who do not run. Share it with everyone. Get it out there. As always, you can continue the conversation with us on Facebook and Twitter, and to get a hold of us, you can reach us at thecatholicforge@gmail.com. For more information regarding the podcast, visit our website at www.thecatholicforge.com. We especially thank our contender wives for their continued support of this project. Thank you, Johnna. Thank you, Catholic Women Run. And thank you very much for listening.
Can we get a guarantee here, Johnna? If people listen to this podcast, can you guarantee that it will help them run an extra quarter mile or a little bit faster?
How many calories?
There's got to be some incentive. Every time you listen to this podcast, it will give you what?
It'll give you a personal record.
There you go.
That's awesome.
In your next race.
All right. From the master.
Boom. The Foundress. I should have called her that in the episode. Foundress Johnna. Yes, okay.